Hello everyone and welcome. Make a cup of your favorite drink and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for news stories from YellowCat. Send your own stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. I once worked as a ride operator at a museum where a dumb kid ran into a metal divider and fell down crying. The parents blamed it on me and tried to get me fired. What are your customer horror stories? Basically, I was working the summer between my freshman and sophomore year of college at a science museum in South Florida. That day, I was an operator for the Mars rover ride. It's morning and we have a few families and a couple of summer camps running around ages 7 to 12, and so I was pretty busy stopping the ride to tell the kids to sit down and stop hitting each other. The ride has a monitor so I could see inside. It starts to quiet down as one of the camps goes to lunch, so there's not so many people, but since I'm running the only ride in the museum and kids are still flocking to me constantly. So I'm running the ride and this family of 6, mom, dad, aunt or something, teenager, older kid, and little kid come up and wait in line. The little kid is going badass running around. None of the adults do anything to stop him, and I don't cause I'm busy watching the monitor since the little F's on board have already gotten up and switched seats mid-ride twice. I was on the in-ride intercom telling them to sit the F down when I hear a howl scream from the line area. The little kid had run into the metal chain at neck level that we kept to separate the loading area and the line area and had fallen backwards. The mom marches up to me and starts screaming about how I wasn't paying attention and I let her kid get hurt. I stand there like a dumbass cause I can't believe she's actually effing mad at me. She makes me get my supervisor to get me fired. I'm right there and she's telling the supervisor what an impotent F I am and that I have no business working around children. My supervisor, who is awesome, says very calmly, "Miss, this is a museum, not a babysitting service. You need to keep watch of your children, not the ride operator." The lady and her family of goons storms out. She called the city for poor safety, but the city only told us we had to change the chain separator to plastic or rubber. The maintenance guy did it the next day. He looked at me and went, "Things going downhill when you have to idiot-proof a museum." Did I mention it was my 3rd day? Oh, I did some volunteering time in a museum and know exactly the kind of people you're talking about. I've had people yell at me for politely asking them and their children to stop punching the small plastic buttons on exhibits. Then, when they inevitably broke, people would yell at me that things weren't working. But the best/worst was... a woman and her kid walk up to an exhibit. The exhibit is out of order because of stupid kids smashing the buttons. There is a sign covering the buttons explaining that the machine is out of order. The woman removes the sign and drops it on the floor. I'm watching a few yards away. Then her kid tries to use the machine and, surprise, it doesn't work. She looks around until she sees me and marches over to bark at me because the machine isn't working. Calmly, I say, "That exhibit is out of order, ma'am." I s you not. The next words out of her mouth were, "Then there should have been a sign on it." "There was a sign on it, ma'am. You threw it on the floor." I once had a customer try to throw their coffee at me. I'd accidentally made a woman a latte with regular milk rather than soy. It was my fault and I apologized profusely. I told her I would make her another drink. This wasn't good enough for the woman. Like a crazed banshee, she shrieked, "I need soy!" and threw her latte at me. The lid stayed on and totally missed me. Instead, exploded on impact and got all over the counters, cabinets, and floor. The bright side is that the owner was in attendance. He made quick work of throwing that bee out despite protests that she didn't get her coffee. I worked at a boat marina for 8 years. I had been there for 2 years as a dockhand by the point that this story begins. One day, I was asked by an outside customer to pilot his boat to the forklift dock, and I did. Here's where things go horribly wrong. The customer neglected to mention that the reason he was there was for the mechanic to fix the broken linkage in the gearshift mechanism. I was pulling up towards a concrete bridge barrier in order to reverse into the dock, and when I shifted to reverse, nothing happened. So I gassed it, thinking that would help. Wrong. As the boat sped up to the concrete pilings, I shut off the engine, jumped to the bow, and prepared to brace the boat for impact. It was a minor impact with minimal fiberglass damage. While this was happening, the customer watched from the dock. He called the water authorities and filed an accident report and claimed me as the cause and person at fault so that his insurance would cover the damage. The Marina agreed to pay the fine, and I agreed to go on with my life. 1 month later, Hurricane Ivan hit the Gulf Coast and devastated the Marina and, unbeknownst to me, the unpaid ticket. Several months go by, and my mother calls me one afternoon to tell me that there is a warrant for my arrest and that I have to turn myself into the police station. I begin to freak out thinking about all of the bad things I have done in my life and how effed I am. Long story short, I figure out that the ticket was the issue and I complained to the owner of the Marina. He had connections with some people and was thankfully able to iron out the problem. I used to work at a very popular lingerie store. It was just after Christmas, and we had a ton of customers. People returning things using gift cards that they had received. I'm working at the registers when this lady comes up to the counter and says that she wants to return a bra that she bought. She had the receipt, but the bra was clearly used, so I was hesitant to let her return it. But my manager just said to do it, so following the return policy, I told her that I could put the money back on the debit card she had used to pay for the bra. She had been polite up until then, but then she started screaming, "No, I want cash!" I was pretty surprised, but tried to calmly explain to her that I couldn't do that because the computer wouldn't let me. I didn't have the authority to override the return system. She starts screaming, "You B, I just want my cash!" The manager comes over and tries to resolve the issue, but the woman keeps yelling, "You mother effing B, give me my money!" over and over. Finally, she throws the unwanted bra in my manager's face and storms out. I thought it was over, but boy was I wrong. After she leaves, the computer stopped working. I guess because we had been trying to override the return system, we had messed something up because it would no longer accept debit or credit cards at all. Then, about 10 minutes later, she comes back, walks right up to my register, and hands me a debit card. Knowing the response I was going to get, I calmly informed her that the computers were no longer accepting debit cards. Good God, the crap she yelled at me. I just stood there silently nodding and apologizing every now and then while she just yelled and yelled and yelled. After she left, the other customers in line all gave me thumbs up and said stuff like, "Hey, she was crazy, don't worry about it." Worst day of my whole time working there. I used to work at a fairly large fabric store in LA. We would get fashion students from FIDM and other schools all the time, and they were by far the stupidest customers I've ever seen. Some would ask me what kind of fabric they needed for class, as if I would know. Some would ask me to estimate how much fabric they would need for a garment while refusing to give me any details about the garment. Honestly, having long sleeves on a blouse is not a proprietary secret. I was once asked to make a yardage estimate for triangle pants, and when I asked what she means by triangle pants, she just repeated herself over and over. The absolute best was when a fashion student asked where we kept the leather. I told her that leather hides were up near the register. She said she wanted yardage instead, so I pointed her towards the faux leather. She came back really upset that I was trying to trick her. What she wanted was yardage of real leather. I had to calmly explain that cows don't grow in flat sheets. She can have real leather hides or faux leather yardage. She ended up stomping her foot and storming out. Not so much a horror story as just absurdly ridiculous. Husband and wife come in to see a movie at my work. They're 30 minutes early. We have 3 auditoriums. They go into the wrong one for 40 minutes. They come out and get mad at us because they read the sign wrong. We remind them that they haven't missed any of their movie yet, so they go into their movie for 45 minutes. They come out and tell us that they decided it was boring and they wanted to go into the 3D movie we have playing downstairs. My manager lets them after arguing them into paying at least the $2 3D surcharge. They come out after an hour and a half and tell us it was boring and they want a full refund. My manager tells them no. They flip their ass and we tell them to leave. They storm out. Wife says, "I'm never coming here again. I'm only going to see movies at Theater Around the Corner." The kicker is that Theater Around the Corner is the same company as us with the same bank account, not a corporate chain, just two theaters. I replied, "Please do." An hour later, the husband came back and said, "My wife left my jacket in the movie." I said, "Well, that means it could be literally anywhere in here," and told him to come back tomorrow and we'll check the lost and found. I used to take people's pictures for passport, permanent resident card, firearm license, etc. One time, after I handed the finished prints to a Latino family for their permanent resident cards, the father then asked me to sign the back of the pictures. I politely said no because only his employer or family doctor or someone who has known them for the past few years can sign that. My job is to stamp the back showing the business name and the location of where the picture was taken. He asked me again, I declined again, informing him I am not authorized to sign and the pictures would be invalid with my signature. He then starts yelling at me for not signing. I even showed him the instruction he had received from the immigration office about the picture requirements, pointing out the line where it said the photographer may not sign. Still, he would not hear any of it, starts to yell at me louder, and a line starts to form behind him. If you had read this far, you might think why I had to point out they're Latino. Well, because him, being a new immigrant, was speaking English rather poorly, but he then proceeded to yell, "Do you even speak English?" to me. He knew d-well I do. He only said it because I'm Asian. That's when I lost it and started yelling back and threatening to call security. They eventually left with the father fuming and cursing. To be fair, his wife was very embarrassed but was afraid to speak up, and the two children were just scared. I'm a manager at a super Target, and my most recent experience was literally last night. There was a call for a manager to come to electronics to meet with a guest. His issue was, a little over a month ago, we sold 12 packs of Sony VHS tapes. No, this didn't happen in the mid-90s, for somewhere around $20. We have since discontinued the 12 packs and now have 4 packs of the same tapes for $9.99. He had made a special trip all the way here to get the 12 pack because when he called a month ago, we had them. That's when I knew this wasn't going to end well. He was holding 3 4-packs in his hand and said, "Can you make an exception tonight and cut me a break? I want these 3 for $20. As soon as I said, "No sir, I'm sorry, but I can't do that," he threw one of them in the air and dropped the other 2. He then started walking towards the front of the store, yelling a bunch of stuff at anybody he passed. Not only that, but he then started pulling items off the shelves as if to leave them in his wake as he walked up a main aisle. At this point, I radioed our assets protection guy and quickly explained the situation and gave a description of the guy and what doors he was headed for. I followed him up to the front, staying about 20 feet back and picking up the stuff he had thrown on the ground. When I got to the front doors, I saw our AP guy running out to the parking lot to catch up to him. 20 seconds later, I saw the off-duty police officer we have in our store, it's not the best neighborhood, running out to the parking lot with his taser drawn. Needless to say, they arrested the guy. Thank you for watching. Guys, thank you for all of the support and likes. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. See you next time.